My name is Annelies. I'm an integrative leadership coach, conduit for change. I help professionals navigate change with eyes wide open, creatively and mindfully. It's important to bring mindfulness into the workplace. When I work with leaders, they have a lot of responsibility to cultivate a sense of awareness so that all hands on deck working on a project are a part of a larger solution so that everyone is successful. And so mindfulness isn't an external issue or solution, it's internal. Mindfulness starts with an individual as well as a collective culture. Mindfulness is about the self and bringing awareness to what a problem is, what the solution is, and what the mindset is that each individual person brings. So mindfulness is not a full mind experience, nor is it an empty mind experience. It's an awareness experience. So that starts with building awareness with self. So that also starts with the breath. So taking a moment to pause, to listen, and to understand through questions that are investigative versus reactive responses, because that's where the problem, the crosshairs often happen in a workplace or in relationships or in dialogues with your kids. It doesn't matter. There's been no scientific proof to prove that the person that shows up to work is any different than the person that left house that day. It's the same thing. So mindfulness comes down to understanding, are you responding or reacting? So a technique is to slow down, breathe, listen, and to not assume. Assumption is where there's a lot of problems. That's where a lot of misunderstandings can take place. When people assume that someone is supposed to do something or that a particular outcome is supposed to happen. So asking good questions start with listening. In a workplace where you have many moving parts and many different people who have different assumptions as to what's needed in that workplace or in that moment, we can lose ourselves. It's easy to lose ourselves in the buzz of the busy, whether it's life or work. But specifically at work, when you've got a lot on your shoulders, remembering can be triggered when it is the most busy, when you are the most stressed, when things are the most chaotic, when you build enough awareness to know, I am kind of buzzy in the busy, when the body begins to indicate. So there's emotional resiliency is about building a sense of awareness around your own body and a sense of awareness around the environment around you. And people forget when they get caught up in that surge of the stress of a workplace. There's a moment right before chaos happens. I have a statement that I often say, creativity resides at the edge of chaos. It's right at the crest of a wave. It's right at the curve of a fern. And it's right at the edge of where we all get chaotic and caught up in the mess of life. So there's a small moment where if you've gone a little bit too far, you can't backtrack, but you can tighten things for yourself. And in that moment, when often people are doing too much for other people, doing too much in general, it's when that first email gets sent to the wrong person, or the first text has a typo in it, or the first project or something has been forgotten on the calendar, that's your first indicator. It's not normally until the third or the fourth, or there's a really big problem, that people begin to rein things in. But you've got 1, 2, 3 opportunities before that fourth one really is where you're in a state of chaos to begin to rein things in. So really your question is not just pointing to when is it the right time to take a breath, but to build a practice of checking in with, am I mindful? Am I aware of what's going on? Most often people get caught up in their own story of what they think is supposed to be. There's an assumption they assume someone is supposed to show up a certain way, or they're supposed to show up a certain way. And there's a breaking point when that assumption is broken. An undiscussed agreement. And so that really starts with ourselves. What am I agreeing to in this? So it's very layered. It's very layered, but the breath is a simple practice. Now, if everyone is working towards a common goal, but the way that they assume that common goal is meant to be achieved, it can cause problems. So how do you deal with that? The first way is to get some clarity around what your role is. That might involve asking better questions. It might involve slowing down and listening better. It might involve, again, being aware of whether you are reactive or in response behavior. Mindfulness, specifically when you're a leader or you're a professional working in a very busy workplace, it's important to realize you can only be responsible for yourself and what you are bringing to the table. So when there's a lot at stake, and you might be responsible for a whole host of people, specifically when you're a leader, you can't forget that you are a part of that solution. And if you tax out all of your energy in fixing versus creating a sustainable solution that makes more sense, then you miss the overall end result. And I think that's the most valuable piece that I hope that you take away from this, is we can only be responsible for so much of the story. And to check in with, how much am I responsible for? If it's many working parts, can you empower? John F. Kennedy said, all boats rise in a rising tide. So where's your boat? Is it moored? Are you overburdening your boat with things that really are taking the entire team down? So consider, what's your relationship with the efforts for the greater whole? What piece are you bringing? That's what mindfulness is. So the consequences of not having mindfulness in the workplace are pretty radical. It's chaotic. It's chaotic for the outcome of the project. It's chaotic for the people along the way. It's chaotic for potentially budgets, longevity of projects, the outcome and the sustainability of a business as a whole or an organization as a whole. So you can build people up, or you can take people down without or with mindfulness. And again, mindfulness is building awareness, is building a sense of knowing what is your relationship to the greater whole. Because in the end, everything is connected. And that's why mindfulness is so important in the workplace and so important to us, because we're human beings, not human doings. And helping people understand that how they be makes a difference in how everything is done in the long run.